Hello, and welcome to another edition of Day Drinking with Kevin. I'm your host, Kevin McGuire, and today Day Drinking with Kevin goes on the road again to visit one of the iconic wine families in all of California and Napa history, the Trefethens. We'll be talking with Lorenzo Trefethen, the third generation in his family to run the winery. I can't wait to see what he has to say. Lorenzo, thank you so much for taking the time to speak with me today and our audience. Um, there's no question that when you drive up Highway 29 towards Oak Knoll, the first thing you see is the cornerstone of that entire region, which is Trefethen Winery. And I can't imagine a visit to Napa without stopping in your historic winery to taste some of your amazing wine. So I am very excited to speak with you today. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you for having me, and thank you for the kind words. Yeah, I'm in that cornerstone, as you say, our historic winery right now, and it's been standing sentinel really to the entrance of Napa Valley for since 1886. And thankfully, it is still standing. As you know, we had a little bit of a shock in 2014, but we were able to put the building back together stronger than ever and really preserve this icon of Napa Valley.
Your family is one of the founding families in Napa, and particularly in the Oak Knoll region, a district where, I think your grandparents helped to craft the identity that became the Oak Knoll district. And I think that one of the things that from an external perspective that I have always seen is that resilience of your family to come back from no matter what it was. You mentioned in 2014 the earthquake. There's also been fires, I think, in 2017, and now we have a pandemic. How is it that your family has been able to persevere through all of these things?
Yeah, it takes a lot of wine. It is day drinking with Kevin, so I'm going to help myself as well, do a little bit of our 2018 cab as we get going here. But there's a lot of passion that animates the wine industry kind of wherever you go, and it is a critical piece of what we do. If like so many things in life, if we didn't really love this, then the vagaries of farming and all the other things that Mother Nature can throw at you, all the other things that just happen in the course of running a business, would throw us off course. We'd be doing something else. But this is in our blood at this point, and we wouldn't know what to do with ourselves if it wasn't for the wine that we make and really pour our hearts and souls into. And so that's what keeps us coming back no matter what. And it's been an eventful few years, as you mentioned. And one of the things that all of the challenges that we've faced, really, starting in 2014 with the large earthquake that knocked this building sideways, that we had to come back from, and now into the pandemic. It was amazing when during the earthquake or shortly thereafter, we came to the winery and some of our employees were already here. And as you can imagine, we don't have a very long drive to get here. But some of our employees were already here. It was 3:30 in the morning, and their first thought was, "Gosh, I hope everything's okay at the winery." Our first thought was, "Gosh, we hope everything's okay with our employees," and to see them here and healthy and concerned about what was going on just speaks to the strength of our team, and that's really what was revealed in all the challenges that we've faced recently is not only my immediate family's commitment to this process, but really everybody who works here at Trefethen. It is such a special place, And it is such an amazing group of people that we get to work with every day.
I can't drive down anywhere in Napa without seeing somebody wearing a Napa Strong T-shirt or a bracelet or a sign. The community itself is amazing at how well they bond together whenever there's a tragedy of any kind. But I think if you were to open the dictionary and look at Napa Strong, Trefethen would be the first thing that you would see.
We were kind of a poster child there for a while. It was, I'm sure you can, well, I'll send you an image you can throw up because a picture speaks more strongly than I ever could. But it was a very visual impact here. But you're right, the community, I mean, not just the community at Trefethen, but the community in Napa Valley really came together and supported one another. And that, I think, is due in no small part to the efforts of my family, and really to create the community here. When my grandparents showed up, there were very few vineyards in Napa. Most of Napa Valley was planted to something other than grapes. And you mentioned sort of them defining the Oak Knoll district. They actually started more broad than that and thought about what the Napa Valley could be. And so when my grandparents put the estate together, they did an interesting sort of handshake deal, where they agreed to purchase the land, but on one condition, and that condition was that the Napa Ag Preserve was established. And the Napa Ag Preserve was the first of its kind, first agricultural preserve in the United States that defined agriculture as the highest and best use of land in the Napa Valley. And as you might imagine, most of the landlords here did not like this idea, because it severely restricted what you could do with your land. And my grandparents came in and said, we're interested in investing in this place, but only if those what we can do is restricted. Only if we define this valley, this bucolic, beautiful setting, as a place for agriculture. And that is really one of the foundation stones, the Ag Preserve, of what Napa Valley came to be. And then, yeah, when my parents started making wine in this building, there were fewer than 30 wineries in the Napa Valley.
Wow.
And so they really had to build the concept of Napa Valley, because, or even before Napa Valley, fine wine from California, because it really didn't exist. And there was something in sort of the founding group of people who came to Napa Valley, my family, the Mondavis, of course, also the Winyarskis and the Barretts and the Davies, and there were a few of what I like to call the original crazies, that just came here, and they all wanted to make great wine in this place, and they made it happen. They did come to the right place, first of all, but really the strength of their personalities and their cooperation in banding together in the early days, and still to this day, if we figure something out in our vineyard, in our cellar, that makes the wine better, we don't treat it as like a trade secret. The first thing we do is we go tell all of our friends, hey, look what we figured out. And that cooperative and competitive, but cooperative, competitive spirit really pushed Napa Valley forward. And, you know, in the space of just a few generations, and just over the last 50 years, really, actually even a shorter time period than that, Napa went from completely unknown to really the crown jewel of the new world of wine. And it was a communal effort for sure. And this valley does so many great things together. If you've ever been to the Napa Wine Auction or Premier Napa Valley, you know that really the entire valley turns out to support one another. And in crisis, it was no different. In fact, I think we were even stronger. These tragedies definitely are unifying in a weird way, and show you where you are strong and where we are strong as a company, but also as a valley, and a region is with each other, and the support. I mean, we just started getting. We didn't call, nothing. No one called us. Food just started showing up when we were in the midst of picking things up after the earthquake. And as you can imagine, it's Napa, so it was pretty good food.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And just the outpouring of support from this community, both real but also uh, from anyone who had ever been here. There is something about the Napa Valley that really connects with people's psyche, I think. And it's just you drive up valley on 29 past that great big orange building that I'm in the middle of right now, and you realize you're in a really special place.
One of the things that is special for me about Trefethen is the sense of family. And let's face it, there aren't a lot of family-owned vineyards in Napa anymore, for a lot of reasons. People have chosen to sell their vineyards to the large conglomerates and things. And I have always been very, very impressed by the sense of family, not only within your family, but within your extended family. Everybody that greets you or serves you wine or talks to you at Trefethen has that same sense of commitment and family that I know starts from the top. I know it's started probably with values set by your grandparents and your parents and with you. But when you go there, they want to talk to you about the history of your winery, and they want to tell you about the amazing characteristics of your wine. And they treat you like you're the only person there at that time. It's not that drink this, step to the right philosophy that may be in some places. And so I think that sense of family and community, not only did you help found Napa's wine and California's wine industry and ultimately Oak Knoll District's wine, and then have your own identity. But I think somehow your family may have had something to do with the sense of family and camaraderie that is Napa for sure.
Yeah,
At least that's how I feel.
Those are really kind words, and I'm glad that your visits here have affected you in that way. That's exactly what we're trying to do with our hospitality. We're trying to welcome people who visit into the family, and we do that with some great juice, but also with a very gentle, warm hospitality. And we do think of everyone who works here as part, as you say, as our extended family, and we extend that feeling to everyone who visits. So I'm mostly just pleased that it comes across that way, and
Absolutely does.
everyone who works here is so proud of the work that's done. One of the other odd things about Trefethen, or rare things about Trefethen, is not only the family ownership and the family feeling, but also the fact that we grow every grape. And that makes a big difference, not only in the quality of the wine, but in the quality of the experience that you have here. And I'm thinking particularly of our employees who work in the vineyard, who account for half of the people who work here. And they are also, a bit unusually, full-time, fully benefited employees of the winery. So everyone who prunes right now, or later in the year, everyone who picks a grape is a direct employee of ours. And they have retirement accounts and all those things, and they always have. So that's a part of creating that family feeling that you speak to, treating people like family, treating people like human beings, and paying them a living wage, and giving them like a real a real livelihood. And that's where the estate also comes in. Not only do we have an amazing piece of land that we have become more and more and more familiar with over the decades, but we do everything, and that again contributes to the psyche that I was talking about earlier, and certainly the psyche of everyone who works here. They're not tasting, when you come and taste, you're not tasting the work of anyone else. Everything happens right here from dirt to bottle. And when it comes to the sense of pride that is displayed by our employees, it's pride, but it's also a very generous pride. Like, we want you to know everything that went into this, and so it's a warm hospitality, and we're not moving you to the next wine because we have so many stories to tell about this wine, and want to make sure that all of everything that went into it is communicated, because that's part of the work, part of the craft of making a truly great bottle of wine, and everyone here feels it. One of the really fun things that my sister actually started is something we call Trefethen University, and we just amongst ourselves, our winemaker, for example, Brian, will sit down with our tasting room staff and tell them what's going on in the winery that day and how we made this wine. And then in another day, we will take them out into the vineyard and have them prune a few vines so they can actually experience what that process is like. And you can see the sense of awe that everyone has for everyone else who works here just expand as they realize just how complex and involved it is, taking a little bit of dirt and sunshine and making it into what we get to experience, if you're lucky, every night.
Absolutely. My audience consists of everybody from the casual wine enthusiasts all the way up to sommeliers who work in restaurants and things. And I think those stories that you talk about that your staff are so willing to share make it so much easier to convey what is Trefethen to people who are looking down a wine list and saying, I need to try something that has a story. And so thank you for those, because when you can paint a picture on a blank canvas for somebody who comes into the restaurant, and they can then picture in their mind what it's like sitting on your terrace, looking at your famed winery, and then be able to understand all the things that went into making that grape juice. It's no longer selling the wine. It's basically just being part of their experience, and that's what, from my perspective, I love. Yeah. The other thing I love about Trefethen is your commitment to sustainability, and the dedication that you want to leave this land better than you started it. And there is an entire group of customers and people out there that I don't think understand what sustainability is, but then when you explain it to them, they appreciate the extra effort that you guys go through to make sure that you're making the world a better place, for sure.
Yeah.
So thank you for that.
Yeah, no, thank you. That's a nice jumping off point. I have one story to tell as you were talking about stories. So when my parents started making wine, they jumped right in. My mother and father actually met, married, and completed their first commercial harvest in the very same year. So 1973 was a big year for us. And they had gone through all of this work. They plus our sort of lone employee, Tony Baldini, Those three basically did the work of over 100 people today. So you can imagine they didn't have much time. Dad was literally sleeping next to the tank, and there was only one. Um, and finally, with all the work done, Christmas dinner, I think, that they were sitting around going, okay, well, we made this stuff. What the heck are we going to call it? And my mother, who was at that point in time, not even a year into the family, she was still the newlywed. She said, "Well, why don't we call it Trefethen?" And all the Trefethens at the table said, "No, that's a terrible idea. No one can pronounce our crazy name." And it was, but Mom made the point that so much of wine is about not only the place but the people behind it, and it turned out to be one of the best decisions we ever made. Even though it takes a couple glasses before you get that Trefethen, it starts to flow. It's accent on the second syllable, but usually it doesn't start that way, and it's memorable, and for us and for our consumers, it's the ultimate guarantee of quality. This still is my name and on the bottle, and it better taste amazing if it's going to get that really that stamp of approval. So that's just one additional story. And then you mentioned sustainability, and there are so many ways to go there. But sustainability has been in our DNA since the very beginning, since before I think the word sustainability was even coined. We were setting this up to be a multi-generational family business, and you want to give your kids something better than you started with. And so my grandparents did things when they set up the property that today are seen as really cutting edge. One example of this is that they installed essentially a central drain here at the winery, and all of the water that is used for washing tanks and everything is collected and then recycled. And it all takes place here on property. So any water that we use, we can then use for irrigation. Today, winery wastewater has become occasionally a hot topic. And it was amazing to me to realize that other wineries were actually shipping wastewater out to be treated, whereas we've always just done it right here because this is where we created it. We better take care of it. That goes really for everything here. I mentioned how we treat our employees in the vineyard, and that is maybe the most interesting part of our sustainability program. We have lots that I could say on the environmental side. So 100% of our activities here are offset by solar installations on the property. We make really amazing use of natural predators in the vineyard. We've eliminated herbicides from our vineyard cultivation. But the way in which we farm, and by that I mean the way in which we bring people into the vineyard to work it, is perhaps the most interesting one. And to have a truly sustainable workforce is unusual in the industry. And to not rely on migrant labor, but to have a workforce that comes back year in, year out, is really something that not only makes us feel good, hopefully makes the wine taste even better, but it actually makes the wine better. Wine growing, some people think as agricultural labor that it's a low-skilled job. Any of our tasting room employees who have been through Trefethen University and gone out to prune a few vines can tell you that it is not. There are a lot of decisions that are made every time you're making that cut. Later on, every time you're picking that grape, it's not as uniform. It's nature out there after all. And you have to know what's going on. And it takes us some time to train new employees in the vineyard. And when we get them the next year, they get better and better and better. And to also give them an estate winery where their work really takes the wine from dirt to bottle, as I said earlier, really gives them something that they can be proud of. This is their work. There's nothing else going into it, and they are so proud of it. And that pride manifests itself in the work that they do in the vineyard.
Lorenzo, I've been studying wine for 30 years, and I said, I've got some free time on my hands, so I decided to sign up for a graduate certificate program at UC Davis in enology. And I thought, how hard can this be? Because I've been studying wine for 30 years.
You just add yeast, right? Well, how hard could it be? Yeah.
Oh my God, I studied harder for that first class than I have for a class in a very, very, very long time. And I got a really great appreciation for what you were just saying, for sure.
Yeah. Yeah, and I should say I was joking. You just add yeast. It's actually even simpler than that. We don't even add yeast in most cases today. We have more and more natural, spontaneous fermentations in the winery, and that's actually harder than adding the yeast that has been selected to exhibit very specific characteristics and take that fermentation through its process very predictably. But the natural fermentations that we favor now are really again a result of this incredible craft that you got a sense of, and the artistry of wine is really you can think about winemaking as cooking, and we're really guiding what is grape juice at base into this very fragile existence that without the touch of man wouldn't exist. The end state of grape juice in nature is vinegar, not wine. So it really is only with the influence that it reaches this state, but it's us working in harmony with nature, and to some degree, the less that we can do, the better, and that really sort of I think speaks in general to our winemaking philosophy, which is when you taste this wine, what I actually want you to taste is what's outside this building. It's the vineyards that surround it. And in order to make a wine that tastes like somewhere, I believe that you have to peel back a lot of what you might learn you're supposed to add in a winemaking class. And the more transparent that you can be, the more interesting and distinctive the wine will be. And that's what we have here. We have a wine that reflects. And we were talking earlier before we hit the record button about the vintage. But just generally speaking, the Oak Knoll district is a cooler climate, particularly in the Napa Valley. And as a result, we make a very elegant style of Cabernet Sauvignon here. We have an amazing growing season, very, very long. And so we're able to develop the fruit intensity and density that you would expect in Napa Valley, of course. But we do that at a slower rate than a warmer climate would happen. And so we're able to develop those fruit characteristics while hanging on to some of the more fragile aromatics and also a brightness. And so really any vintage at Trefethen is a cool vintage in the Napa Valley, and lends itself to a real brightness in the wine, a real liveliness, and also a spiciness as well. And to speak specifically to this wine, the 2018 was just, there were so many things that lined up in that vintage. Yeah, this is I think one for the ages. And in addition to sort of the quality being there, inherent in the vineyard, the vintage itself or harvest itself was nice and paced out. Sometimes we're picking grapes as fast as we can. In 2018, we were able to really make those picking decisions when we were really sure that this piece of the vineyard was ready. We weren't overwhelmed by the pace of ripening grapes. We were able to pick them really when we wanted them, and bring them in and make the wine that we really wanted to. So, and this again, the wine that we want to make is an elegant, balanced, and somewhat restrained style of Cabernet Sauvignon. Again, with that intensity, that density, but great balance, great nuance. That's what we're looking for in our wines.
You hit a home run with this 2018 vintage for sure.
Thank you.
There's no question that the last year has been tough worldwide, but particularly in Napa with the fires and then the pandemic and all of the things that happened. And now we're starting to come out of that a little bit. How has Trefethen changed in say the last year, or even in the last couple of months, to adapt to all of that? And what can those casual day drinkers and the visitors at the winery look forward to moving forward?
Yeah, it's such an interesting question. I think that, again, when we face challenging times, it is a real clarifier. It highlights both your, where you are weak, you realize you were really weak, but where you are strong, it shows where you were really strong. And it was gratifying, and I do think that part of it, not something that we'd wish to go through again, but the tragedies that we faced coming up to 2020 in some ways prepared us for it, and we were able to cope perhaps better than we would have. That said, we are so excited that it is 2021, and we are. Last year we were closed for certain months to visitors, and this year we are open. So we are so excited to welcome people back to the estate, and we're lucky enough to have a lot of outdoor space that's comfortable in any weather. So we've been hosting more and more people here, and I will say we have somewhat changed the experience of visiting Trefethen. And really, we give people even more of that one-on-one attention. If you come here, you're going to spend some quality time with one of our wine educators. And we've also added a whole culinary part to the experience here. So Chef Chris, who has been working with us for many years, we've rolled out some food and wine experiences at the estate, and they are phenomenal. And Chef was really one of the first chefs in Napa Valley to get into the dark art of food and wine pairing, and he's kind of an OG when it comes to that. The thinking about food after wine, having a wine and then creating a dish to pair with it, very different from ordering something at a restaurant and then picking the wine to go with that. And so Chris has created these just incredible pairings, and in the true Trefethen fashion, there's always something from the estate on the plate. So we grow more than grapes here at Trefethen, and when you come and experience one of Chef Chris's culinary creations, you'll be literally tasting the estate. One of my favorite things, and actually it's often something we pair with this wine, is Chef found on our property some wild arugula growing, and it is so peppery, it is so spicy, it is so much more intense than anything you'll ever find in a store. And so he started cultivating it, and we have one little box of wild arugula out in the garden that we grow, and sometimes just that leaf is all you need to pair with this wine. We usually put it on top of something else, but even just a little nibble of that leaf and that peppery spiciness pairs so well with this wine.
Well, tonight I am going to prepare a steak à poivre with a mushroom duxelle for your wine, and I am looking forward to that pairing, and I am looking forward to experiencing some of these new experiences that you have set up. As I was doing the research for this video, I was looking through your website and looking at all of these amazing experiences you have, from the tastings to the virtual experiences to the culinary experiences. That's exactly what I was really hoping to see when we come out of this this whole craziness that we've been in and start to get through that new normal, whatever that is. I hope to, well, I will visit and experience some of these things in person, because I know they're going to be amazing. And for those day drinkers out there, I encourage you to visit the Trefethen Winery in the Oak Knoll district in Napa, and look Lorenzo up when you're there, because he and his family and an extended family will give you an experience like no other. And I highly recommend visiting Trefethen as one of your primary stops in your visit to Napa. So Lorenzo, thank you so much for taking the time to speak with us today, and I really appreciate it. Again, one of the founding members of Napa in your family, and it's probably been quite a ride being a member of the Trefethen family, for sure. But I wish you well and success in everything that you do. And on my next trip to Napa, I hope we can raise a glass together and celebrate what is a wonderful friendship. Thank you so much. Say hello to the family for me, and next time I'm in Napa, I'd be happy to stop by. Thank you again. I appreciate it.
Cheers.
Cheers. Now, when you think of the cornerstones of California and Napa wine families, you understand why Trefethen is at the top of my list. Lorenzo, thank you so much for taking the time to speak with me today. I really enjoyed our time together. If you like this episode, please don't hesitate to give it a thumbs up and consider subscribing to Day Drinking with Kevin. If you have an idea for future episodes, please don't hesitate to email me at daydrinkingwithkevin@gmail.com. Until then, I say salute.